Hey folks, it is Nate here with Freight 360. Have another awesome question from one of our listeners. Today's question is, what does a freight agent do when they are ready to retire? All right, so a freight agent that wants to retire. We've got another message here from one of our listeners. We're going to read through it and then break it all down. Hey Nate, hope all's well on your end. I'm a fan of your podcast. You guys do a really great job and give lots of good information, so I wanted to thank you for all that you guys do. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I did have one question I was hoping I could pick your brain on. I was curious on what 1099 agents typically do when they're ready to retire or transition into something else, and if there are opportunities to sell their books of business. Thanks in advance. Well, thanks for the message here. We're going to break this one down. There's two big things that came up here. Transitioning a book and selling a book. They're two different things. Now, when you are a 1099 freight agent and you have a book of business, you can call yourself a business owner because you might be, but at the end of the day, you really own your job is what it comes down to. Because those customers, that book of business may or may not be able to be sold or transitioned to anybody. So at the end of the day, you might not be able to do anything with it, but I'm going to talk through a couple situations where I've seen folks that have transitioned their book of business. Now let's talk about selling a book first. Selling a book would be to take an evaluation on the size of your book of business, what the gross profits are on it annually, and then maybe try to give like a 3 to 5 year multiple on that and try to sell it to somebody. So let's say you did $100K a year in gross profit. You might try to sell it for $300,000 to $500,000. Very, very rarely will anybody pay that for it, but I've seen folks that try to go down that route and sell their book. How do you guarantee that business will transition over? What are you getting? A customer list? Is it dedicated freight? It gets very messy. The thing that I have seen is folks that have transitioned their book of business in order to retire or just get out of the freight world. They want to do something different, right? They might pass it on to their kids or a coworker or whatever the case might be. So outside of being a 1099, you don't have the 401k and the pension or whatever else might come with a W-2 job that you might have had for years or decades. We're not going to talk about the financial part. We're going to talk about what you can do to maybe own or still maintain some residual on that business and how to go through doing that. So I've seen a couple folks do this successfully, and I think the longer that the agent model stays relevant and grows in popularity, we'll see more folks that will retire or transition out of the freight world from the 1099 model. Okay, so first thing, I've got kind of a 4-step process here. 4 steps, right? Hire, introduce, transition, and then a residual, okay? And I'm gonna explain these. So the first thing to do, if you're planning to retire or get out of the freight world, this is not gonna happen overnight, right? It's gonna probably take you maybe a year or two, depending on the situation, the size of your book, your level of trust, confidence, all that stuff, right? So the first thing to transition it is you wanna hire somebody, right? So get somebody involved in your day-to-day operation. They've gotta learn the operational side, the account management side, the ins and outs of whatever kind of freight you're dealing with. The next thing would be to slowly introduce that person into the customer as far as that relationship goes. So no longer are you customer facing solely, now you've got a secondary person that is gonna be also customer facing and working with them. Same thing with your partner carriers. If you've got a lot of carriers that you use on a repeat basis, get those folks or whoever you're hiring, get them involved in that day-to-day operational discussions and any kind of communication with them. You want to make that person become familiar with your customers and carriers, and you want your customers and carriers to be familiar with that new person. The next part is to start to transition that. So that's where now they're going to be taking some of your, some of the loads, booking them themselves, and they're starting to take the wheel and kind of drive the train here and steer the ship on the way that the business is going. Once that transition has fully happened, which might take 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever the case might be, then you can set up some sort of a residual commission. So I've seen a couple things. It might be, hey, I'm gonna take 5% for the life of these customers. So whatever they produce, I'm getting 5 or 10%, whatever that might be. Another thing is more of a step down trailing commission, and this will happen during the transition period. So as you start to back away from the business day to day and that person is now taking over, maybe you're splitting commission 50-50 with them, and then you're gonna step down to 30%, 20%, and then after 5 years, maybe you're getting nothing, you're fully done, you're retired, and that's that. You can go do whatever you wanna do, sit on a beach, or golf every day, or start a new job, I don't know. But that's a good way to do it. So again, selling a book of business, not a really good thing because there's really no customer transition there. You're just selling a customer list really, but the transition to somebody else, if you can do it successfully, and it's something you have to definitely nurture that process and really caress it so it's not rigid, it's done very, very slowly, smoothly, and methodically, that's probably the best way you can do it, and I've seen it work a handful of times now. And I do suspect that more people will start to go down that road. So again, thanks for the question here. Looking forward to all the other questions. I've got a ton here that I've got to do videos on that they've just been pouring in. So thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you on the next one.